Teen Titans is a long-remembered and heavily loved show, running from July 2003 to September of 2006. While only running for those 3 years, this show left a huge impression on those who watched it at the time. One of the biggest impressions it left on me, and one that I genuinely love and still relate to this day, is how the show represented and tackled disability. When we hear about people talking about disability in comics, we normally hear about Matt Murdock, Professor Xavier, or Clint Barton, depending on if the writers remember it or not. However, despite the representation of disability, some sing a different tune. You see, there's a huge argument that if a disabled character gets a power or equipment that lets a disabled character succeed in an aspect that their disability hinders, are they truly disabled? The answer's yes! This argument forgets that Matt Murdock being only able to kind of see, yeah, that's very real to blind people, as the majority of blind people can still kind of see. Total blindness is extremely rare, and while total blindness is obvious in a character like Toph from Avatar, Toph, like many blind people, can still feel around, hear her environment, and use that to help her navigate the world around her. It also doesn't take into consideration things like hearing aids, something that Clint Barton canonically uses, as much like blindness, you don't have to be completely deaf to be considered deaf. Just because these characters have certain workarounds or things to help their disability doesn't make them not disabled. Oftentimes, it actually shows more representation of how everyday disabled people actually function. Kind of like the misconception that all wheelchair users can't stand at all, when in reality, the majority of wheelchair users can stand, however only for short periods of time, which is why they need the wheelchair. With that taken care of, we can talk about my main reason for this video and one of my favorite representations of disability. Cyborg, real name Victor Stone, was a high school football player who was on course to getting a full-ride scholarship to college when an accident occurs in his father's laboratory. Victor ends up nearly dying from this, only being saved by his father's work, and this ends up resulting in Victor becoming half robot. Throughout the series, we get references to Cyborg and his disability and how it affects him. However, I'll only be going over a handful of episodes that make it the main focus. Some of his parts. This episode is haunting. One of the only Teen Titans episodes that I would legitimately qualify as a horror. All of this starting with a day in the park. A beautiful day, the Titans are having an outing, showing that the team does try to have downtime together outside of their regular routine. Beast Boy is barbecuing tofu, Raven reading in the shade, Star drinking mustard, and Robin and Cyborg playing a game of football. During the game, Cyborg ends up running out of power, resulting in a complete shutdown. After rebooting, he relays to his team that his main power cell needs to be recharged.
You sure you don't want help?
Just 'cause I can't have fun doesn't mean y'all can't.
On his way back to the tower, he's stopped by a little boy with a prosthetic arm. The boy looks up to Cyborg because he sees how similar they are. Cyborg is very visibly uncertain on how to respond, but he ends up getting called away before he actually has to. A robbery being conducted by Mumbo Jumbo has the team's attention, and Cyborg, despite not having recharged his main power cell, has instead elected to MacGyver a temporary battery. However, in the fight, the temporary battery is destroyed and Cyborg loses power. Cyborg ends up dumped inside a hole. The team, believing that Mumbo has Cyborg, end up chasing after Mumbo and accidentally leave Cyborg, who is now stuck underground. Cyborg is eventually awoken, but not by his team. Instead, a person by the name of Fix-It, who has recharged Cyborg and over time is attempting to replace all of Cyborg's remaining human parts with cybernetics. Fix-It himself is a cyborg, having replaced countless parts of himself with cybernetics to rid himself of imperfections. However, in trying to take over Cyborg's mind, Fix-It is overcome with emotion, making him realize that he's lost himself. Cyborg, now free, could easily leave Fix-It or even seek revenge, but instead offers to help Fix-It regain his humanity.
Perhaps I am the one in need of repairs.
And maybe I'm the guy who can help repair you.
Once reunited with his friends, they return to the park where Cyborg finds the boy from earlier. Now having time to respond and a better certainty in himself, Cyborg relays that they are more alike through their humanity rather than their disability. If you couldn't tell, this episode is actually very similar to how Cyborg became Cyborg, a retreading of old wounds and a hard lesson that all disabled people have to learn. You see, Cyborg was doing normal activities, everyday normality, and then reminded by a young kid, someone just like him, that he's disabled. However, Cyborg doesn't know how to respond to the kid, and it's honestly very relatable. If you didn't know, I'm disabled. Been trying to get all my diagnoses in order to get onto disability kind of disabled. And Cyborg's reaction here hits me. When someone can easily clock you as being disabled, even when you don't have to talk about it, it's almost uncomfortable, even if it's coming from a place of reassurance, relatability, or understanding. Cyborg doesn't see himself as being disabled. Then, having retreaded what happened to him, Cyborg accepts this part of him, coming to a better understanding of what happened and being able to accept and move forward with the outcome of it. Cyborg talks about how his disability is a part of him, yes, but he's still human. He'll still reach out to people who need help. Hell, he can even understand them better this way. You aren't your disability, it's simply a part of you and your story. How long is forever? The Sum of His Parts isn't the only episode that tackles Cyborg's disability. How Long is Forever, while being a Starfire-centric episode, shows a very real depiction of how some disabled people live, stuck inside to the very item keeping them alive. Without giving a full breakdown as the whole episode isn't as important, this is what you need to know. After a full day of the team fighting with each other, Starfire gets sent into the future with the team believing that Star died, and in their grief they lose connection with each other and fall into their own personal hell. Cyborg, being considerably older now, though I'm uncertain on how old Cyborg is supposed to be, as while everyone is an adult in this episode, Cyborg looks to be in his 60s, while the others seem to be in their 30s. But the reason may genuinely be because of Cyborg's condition taking a toll on his human side. You see, Cyborg's main power cell is shot, the thing keeping him alive being the Titan's tower itself. Cyborg has loads of power cords plugged in throughout the entire tower, using the power to keep himself alive. This has resulted in Cyborg having to stay within the tower, and with the now previous Titans no longer in contact with each other, Cyborg has been left alone, seemingly disregarded by the world, no longer able to be a hero, but also no longer able to do any of the activities that Cyborg used to love. We do get a happy ending as Cyborg is able to make a temporary battery similar to the Sum of His Parts, and with the help of the other Titans, they save Starfire and are able to return her back to her original time. We don't get a solid answer on if the future we witnessed was overwritten by Starfire returning home or if a timeline split occurred. However, we know that Cyborg is back with his friends, who have always accepted him as he is. Deception. Talking about accepting, Deception talks about the hard task of letting go of your previous life before your disability.
Oh yeah, baby, somebody's been working out. Oh. Whoa, hey, Star. I didn't. How long have you been standing there?
Forgive me, your door was open.
Oh, it's cool. Just checking out the old unimproved me. I'd forgotten what it was like to have real hands. Well, almost real.
They are most convincing. However, my preference is for the original version.
This is the original version.
In Deception, Cyborg has to go undercover to the Hive Academy so that the Titans can better understand their enemy. Using a ring to make Cyborg appear to be fully human and with the ability to turn to stone, he infiltrates and quickly exceeds his new peers. Fun fact, this episode really made me enjoy the relationship dynamic of Cyborg with Jinx because of how cute her crush on Cyborg is. Brother Blood, the headmaster of Hive Academy, tries to brainwash Cyborg, who plays along, as with his cybernetics, Cyborg is able to withstand the brainwashing. The team is able to take down Brother Blood thanks to this. Later, Cyborg is in his room with his disguise on. Starfire checks in on him, and the two end up talking about why the disguise and the mission hit Cyborg so hard. He was never able to finish high school, and the mission at the Hive Academy made him feel normal again. Starfire tells Cyborg who he is currently is all that Starfire has ever known, and so Cyborg has always been normal, at least to Starfire. I also really like this scene because it heavily reflects Star and Cy's connection in Trock. The two have a very subtle but strong dynamic, and I wish more people talked about their interactions. Starfire and Cyborg don't care about their past or how the world sees them. They only care about who they are now and how they see each other. Cyborg essentially gets to live out a potential life in this episode, one where he never ended up disabled, one where he could continue his normal life and activities. But sometimes those possible lives, those alternate histories, should stay just that. Wishing things had happened differently, had a different outcome, is something that's universal. But being able to accept what did happen and having people around you caring for you as you are now, not what you could have been, is what really matters.
You could have been one of us.
I could have been a lot of things.
Only Human. The last one that I want to talk about is Only Human. The episode fully focuses on Cyborg's disability in a way that builds off of the sum of his parts, as Cyborg is dealing with the limitations of his cybernetics and trying to push past them. During training, Cyborg cannot finish lifting, having hit a limit, and Robin, being a horrible spotter, tries to get him to continue despite hitting his limit.
I'm on your side, remember? I was just trying to get you to kick it up a notch.
I don't have another notch. I'm not like you, okay? When I say I can't, I can't! When I was an athlete, when I was human, I loved pushing my limits. Getting stronger, faster, better, just by trying harder than I ever had before. My coaches would always tell me to give 110%, and I always did.
Cyborg is obviously upset by hitting this limit and not being able to go farther. Deciding to go blow off steam by playing a video game, unknowingly he ends up upsetting a robot by the name of Atlas, who challenges Cyborg IRL. Yes, this was a "you only beat me in a game, fight me IRL," but Atlas actually ends up defeating Cyborg and manages to capture the other Titans, using them as leverage to get Cyborg to fight him once more. Cyborg arrives and is insulted by Atlas, who views Cyborg's human side as weak and inferior, giving a contrasting point to Cyborg's issues with his cybernetics in the earlier part of the episode. Cyborg is once again defeated by Atlas, who refuses to set free the other Titans, and Cyborg is forced to flee. However, Cyborg realizes that it's his humanity that Atlas despises so much that can be used to actually defeat Atlas. Cyborg returns to rescue his friends and face off once more against Atlas. Relying on his human side, Cyborg overpowers Atlas, and with some outside help, the Titans are set free and Atlas is fully taken down. Atlas admits that Cyborg is the better robot, while Cyborg corrects him that Cy is a better person.
You are a better robot.
No, I'm a better person.
I have some explaining to do here on how this fully ties in with disability. This episode is very confusing to most people, as at the start, it's his robot side that's the limitation, and it concludes with the same message, but instead now being about how his human side is stronger, and that causes a lot of confusion with a lot of fans. When you have limitations, when you can't do what other people can, your field of vision can narrow, and you stop seeing the bigger picture or other possibilities. For reference, I have some not-so-great legs, sometimes even giving out on me, and always in severe pain. But I've started going on walks to try to help strengthen them. I have days where I'm in so much pain that I don't even want to try to stand on them or walk on them. Days where I break down crying because of the pain, but if I don't try to help them, they won't get any better. This doesn't go for all disabilities, obviously. Not everything can be strengthened, but we can understand our limitations and still try to push them. Still try to see what all we can do. We can have difficulty with things and still attempt them. There's a very famous contestant that was on MasterChef who had been blind for about 2 years at the point of her being on MasterChef. However, just because she ended up blind due to an illness doesn't mean she wanted to give up her dream of being a chef. Cyborg has always been a favorite character of mine, someone that no matter what episode it is, I can relate to him and see how he sees himself and how the world sees him. Hell, even in the episode Trock, when he says that he does understand discrimination due to being half robot, despite them sidestepping the theme of race with the comments, it still works because when you're disabled, the world sees and treats treats you differently. Some people want disabled representation to stay feeble, because that's how they view us. Some say that the representation doesn't work because they have a workaround, not understanding that many disabled people in the real world do have workarounds, or not as extreme of limitations as those that are not disabled assume we have. And honestly, it stems from the fact that they don't actually understand the disabilities they are speaking on. But then characters like Cyborg don't often get brought up in the topic of disabled characters because it's not directly called a disability, even when it's directly called a disability. Cyborg is a lot of things. He's a great friend, he's a fierce gamer, he's a man who loves his car maybe a little too much, and he's a great representation of a person with a disability. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, stay safe, and bye!